I have an oddly soft spot for this level called Kinetic Bypass. It's a chaotic, fast-paced level with, frankly, some pretty ugly designs lifted straight from the Laser Blitz clone creating school. But it doesn't really matter, because your eyes are constantly being assaulted by bright, in-your-face flashing effects. It's a hectic, high-velocity experience that gets the blood pumping. Faster, 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 it says, shifting gears ever upward. The name of the level complements this energy beautifully. Kinetic Bypass, conjuring images of an FTL jump or a wormhole or something due to its connotations with scientific verbiage. We know what kinetic energy is, and the title invites us to draw from that association in this new context. Basically, what I'm trying to tell you is that Kinetic Bypass is a really good name for this level, and I think that's important. In fact, I think level names are more important than people often realize. So that's what we'll be discussing today. After all, aside from maybe a thumbnail shot, the name of your level is usually going to be most people's first point of contact with it, whether it be in the game itself or on YouTube or through word of mouth. And first impressions matter. On top of that, a strong name for your level makes it more memorable. But, I hear you say, shouldn't we not be judging a book by its cover? Isn't this whole video an exercise in futility because it's what's inside the level that actually counts and not what it says on the box? To that I say, no. It's true that the name of a level doesn't tell you everything, but it does tell you something. Perhaps something we could stand to investigate a little more deeply. Like it or not, presentation is important. Take the Sonic series, for example. Supersonic and Ultrasonic were both high energy, high speed levels, displaying a level of intensity that matched their namesake. The names of these levels create certain expectations in you on the outset, and the way the substance of a level meets or subverts those expectations matters. Both of these levels were highly beloved. However, when Hypersonic dropped, there was a profound sense of disappointment in the community. And like, you can point out that it doesn't look all that great, and that's definitely true, but I don't think that's what ultimately really mattered. Hypersonic does not feel intense, it's not fast-paced, it's not exciting like its predecessors were. Coldbreaks' 10,000 is a bouncy and happy-go-lucky song that does not lend itself well to a level in the Sonic series, and it shows. In fact, replace Hypersonic with Kinetic Bypass, and I think you make an extremely compelling argument that it's not the fugly visuals that's the Achilles heel of this level. Instead, it's that it doesn't live up to its name. This level should not have been part of the Sonic series, and it should not have been called Hypersonic. It should have been called, Terrific Tenacity or something. I suspect the reason we don't really talk about level names that often in this community is because they're ultimately not all that flashy, and admittedly they're not the most important part of the level by a long shot. It's not a visually impressive set piece, and it doesn't get the blood pumping like an engaging gameplay section, and it most certainly can't carry a level by itself. Plenty of levels are remembered for one particular part, sometimes even a single moment of the whole experience, but never for the name. The name is only remembered if there's substance to back it up. After all, it's just a bit of text, limited to only 20 characters. What can you even do with that much? Plenty of levels don't give it a second thought. Borrowing the name of the song is a fairly prevalent practice. It's nice and easy and very functional, and sometimes it is legitimately just the best fit. It's also a nice gesture towards the artist of the song, because oftentimes in this community, the song of a level is remembered by the name of the level itself. People refer to music used in Geometry Dash levels as Geometry Dash music. You'll hear people talk about the Solar Flare song. But surprise, pop quiz! Do you know what it's actually called off the top of your head? No? What about the Insanity song? Or the Falling Up song? Do you even know who made these songs? Not that either, huh? You're a terrible person. Okay, to be fair, this is mainly a problem in a lack of due diligence in giving proper credit in this community. Sometimes you'll even be lucky to see proper credit being given for the level that's being played, let alone the song. It used to be a mark of professionalism to add credits of the level as well as the song in the video itself, but nowadays that mark of professionalism is crisp 4K footage with no distractions, to the detriment of the other people that contributed to that video. I am making a moral judgment here. Nexus. Also, I'm getting off track. Let's get down to business and talk about God Eater. Again. When God Eater was first revealed, it was one of the most hyped levels at that time. Nobbleboy was at the peak of his popularity, and the community regarded the level as his upcoming masterpiece, one to rival Woodkid, which true Whirlwind historians will remember is a narrative I also played into. Both of these levels were extremely highly regarded at the time. They were the penultimate peak of Geometry Dash levels. I'm not going to relitigate the history of these levels here, but for the purposes of this video, it's important to bring up that Woodkid and God Eater both contained art assets from other artists. This was especially destructive for God Eater because it resulted in Nobbleboy receiving a cease and desist from Namco Entertainment concerning the name of the level as well as the end art. On the other hand, Woodkid never received legal repercussions for the art it used because Jakers was smarter about his plagiarism and took from small artists instead who didn't have the legal means or knowledge to seek legal action. Remember guys, copyright law protects large corporations with armies of legal experts, not independent artists. I know copyright law has enjoyed a resurgence in popularity recently because of the rise of AI art, but I need you to remember who copyright actually serves to protect in practice. Forgive me if this is a controversial take, but I don't think Nobbleboy should have received a cease and desist over this. Like, putting aside my opinions on God Eater as a level, it's clearly a piece of fan art dedicated to a bunch of different media Nobbleboy likes. You can say, of course, that that makes the level kind of uninspired and incoherent, but point is, I don't think there's a moral problem with that. The important part is to cite your sources. Anyway, I'll get off my political high horse now and get to the point I was driving at before getting horribly sidetracked. The consequence of that cease and desist was that Nobbleboy renamed the level from God Eater to Astral Divinity. And I think you can immediately feel how it makes the level lose some of its punch. I think this disappointment proves how important the name of a level can really be. God Eater is an incredibly evocative name, taking the very base animalistic act of consuming another's flesh for sustenance, a primal and brutally undignified way to end the life of another living being, and applying it to the divine, a higher being that doesn't need to worry about lowly mortal concerns like sustenance and survival somehow being faced with being at its receiving end. That stark contrast is inherently intriguing and prods at the imagination. The way I imagine God Eater in my mind is a level with a lot of divinely inspired symbolism and a sense of scale and grandeur that's slowly encroached upon by some corrupting influence. The way the level starts is honestly really good, I think. In fact, I'd say the thematic progression of the level holds up really well until the ball part with the freaky looking teeth and the eyeball. But after that, it kind of falls apart. The corrupting influence that was encroaching on the level suddenly falls off completely, and it reverts to generically divine symbolism with frankly too many colors to give it that dark and guttural feeling the name implies. I guess in that sense, you could argue that Astral Divinity is actually a more fitting name for the level as a whole, but it's not as punchy and evocative as God Eater. It's just kind of boring and generic in comparison. Like, I won't pretend that there's nothing here, but it's just missing that punch, that beautiful contrast God Eater had. In fact, in the process of making this video, I've developed a theory that states that names that evoke some kind of contrast are inherently kind of fascinating. Take Black Blizzard, for example. The point of contrast here is easy to identify. Blizzards are violent and indiscriminate forces of nature. They are cold and merciless storms carrying the immediate threat of frostbite and even death to those who get caught up unprepared. And we see this in the level too. You are constantly besieged by snow and ice particles. Gusts of wind and fog obscure your vision, and the world around you is devoid of color. However, it's not pure white you're surrounded with. No, the snow here is an ominous black, immediately raising questions about its origins and the nature of the mountains you're traversing. There's a supernatural air about the level, because as grounded as it is in concept, there's still some abstraction when it comes to its design. Not to mention, there's strange lights haunting the mountainside. It's enough to give the level an added layer of mystique. In addition to being a prime example of my contrast theory, I think this is an instance where the name of the level and the substance of the level are in flawless harmony with each other. The level delivers on what the name promises perfectly. They are inseparable. One more example to seal the deal. Dance Massacre. When the discussion of level names does come up in this community, this one is often brought up, and it's definitely worthy of that praise. Following the word dance with Massacre is such a tonal whiplash, it's so completely out of pocket, but at the same time, what it's trying to convey is immediately clear. Massacre implies cruelty and senseless violence. So in this context, it can be taken to mean shredding so hard on the dance floor that you're physically intimidating the competition from taking part. You're putting on an undeniable spectacle. You're hogging the spotlight to the detriment of everyone else. Maybe a little inconsiderate, but hey, you can't argue with these moves. Just look at him go. Now that I've established the veracity of my contrast hypothesis, I'm going to apply it to my own video and take a complete left turn. Let's talk about some level naming conventions that do not work. Specifically, I want to talk about Dansman and his level, God Yeeter. God Yeeter is a very standard Dansman level that has been completely forgotten in time. The only reason it's even remotely noteworthy today is because its title is a riff on God Eater. I'm not here to tell you that there's something inherently wrong with that, but the level itself has nothing to do with God Eater. Not a single thing about it is related to God Eater in any way, making it incredibly obvious that the name was chosen just by taking the name of a popular level and memifying it. Now, maybe you don't care about this. It's just a funny name, who cares? But let me offer you this scenario. Instead of being a completely normal, unremarkable Geometry Dash level, what if God Yeeter actually parodied God Eater? For example, what if it had a spooky eyeball that looks at you all ominously, but then you bump into it and it goes flying off with its pupil crossed out, cartoony style? What if you took the ball corridor with the scary teeth, but instead of menacingly closing in on you, the teeth are a little more cartoony, and every time you switch sides, you knock some of them out on impact? I'm willing to bet a lot more people would remember God Yeeter to this day if it actually put in the effort to come up with some funny ways to parody God Eater besides just aping the title. It would have a lot more staying power, and the name of the level would feel much more earned. Now, I didn't just bring up Dansman to bash on him. In fact, please do not show him this video. He would destroy me. Anyway, the reason I brought up God Yeeter is because it's a symptom of a greater trend that has since developed, which I think Dansman spearheaded with levels like it, as well as Hey Rob, Rate This, and Despacito OMG Oh Whoa. As a result, we now have levels like the Walter White trilogy, Pooh Cubed, Silent Oppenheimer. Why? What are you doing? Stop this. None of these levels have anything to do with their titles. A name that doesn't reflect the substance of a level is one thing, but it's this ironic detachment that I hate with a burning passion. Take Space, I guess. What, are you not sure? The level isn't even trying to be lighthearted or funny, so aping Bill Wirtz makes no sense here. It just gives the impression that the creator gave the title no thought whatsoever and just went with the first thing that came to mind. It gives me, well, that just happened energy. He's standing right behind me, isn't he? When the girl in the Minecraft movie trailer says, "This guy is such a tool bag," as Minecraft Steve introduces himself, the reason it makes you cringe is because you're picking up on the writers and actors of the movie not really taking the dialogue seriously. It's a lame attempt at self-deprecation, making light of the movie's characters and setting and trying to be relatable to the audience at the cost of the movie's immersion. This is what you're doing when you call your level Limbo but ooh woo I guess IDK. Frankly, have a little more respect for your level, man. Now, for the record, there's nothing wrong with your level being lighthearted and having the name reflect that. It's really the self-deprecating aspect that's, for the lack of a better word, fucking cringe. It's a hard line to straddle, though, because making a joke in the title of your level automatically implies a certain level of unseriousness. It makes your level easy to dismiss out of hand, and it makes it difficult for the level to be anything but a joke level. The only creator I can think of off the top of my head that is able to ride that line is Penuto. And I think the reason for that is that the way Penuto titles his levels is itself a parody of how creators usually name their levels. Excessive Compliment, for example, makes fun of levels like Infinite Iniquity, Astronomical Alchemy, Sinister Incision. You know the type. 2-word titles. Adjective, noun. Usually, but not always, alliterations that are mostly just meant to sound kind of cool, but ultimately don't really mean anything beyond that. This is why Astral Divinity sounds so generic, by the way. It blends right in. The reason excessive complement doesn't fall into the same crowd is because despite looking the same, it has that identical adjective-noun structure with vaguely thesaurian-looking words, but the actual meaning of the words completely subverts the trope. The concept of an excessive complement is nothing grand or inspiring or epic sounding, it's just kind of silly. As I was writing this video, my friend Sirius reminded me of another creator relevant to this discussion, Heisenberg, who also has a treasure trove of unhinged level names. You've got Annoying Shower, Music of Funky Fish, Sausage in the Fire, Cunning Fence, and many others. This is funny and I will accept no dissent in the comments. I've been lectured about having no joy or whimsy one too many times to accept criticism for finding Flight Pants a funny name. I can articulate why though. This is a very vibes-based judgment obviously, but these titles don't come across as self-deprecating to me. They strike me more as absurdist. This is not something you just come up with on the fly. They don't use contemporary slang or memes as a shortcut in a lazy attempt to come across as relatable and funny. They're not funny in relation to something else. They stand on their own. Together. I think the fact that they're just very normal looking Geometry Dash levels helps with this too. There's more levels out there that have absurdist names like this, but oftentimes those levels are also some degree of absurdist themselves, which makes their names seem more fitting. They set expectations for you and then meet them perfectly. And while that's principally a good thing, I do think it kind of takes away from the absurdist vibe of the title somewhat. Heisenberg levels don't do that. They deliberately don't meet your expectations in order to preserve that absurdist feeling, which paradoxically is kind of what you should expect if you think about it. Let's not go down this rabbit hole. Anyway, enough jokes. Back to serious business. I don't really know how to fit this neatly into the video, but I have two more levels I want to discuss because I love them and I want to talk about them and you can't really stop me. First, Duolo Maestro. There are scant few levels that really try to explore the two-player feature in this game, especially back when this level came out. It stands out by virtue of being unique in this regard. Duolo Maestro is a great level, of course, but it definitely has a great name too. Maestro is a word I associate with an artisan, the cream of the crop in their particular skill, a master in their craft. It's no coincidence then that this level sets itself up as the penultimate challenge in two-handed gameplay. This is an oppressive, downright edgy level. It wants you to feel how difficult it is through sheer atmosphere, and it works. People respect this level. They intuitively understand that playing this is fucking batshit, that it requires prodigious skill to traverse with both icons, and the level's name perfectly alludes to that. Nowadays, there are two-player levels that are a lot harder than this, but back in the day, beating Duolo Maestro used to be an incredible badge of honor, reserved only for the masters of their craft. And frankly, it still is, if you ask me. Finally, let's bring up the elephant in the room. A bizarre phantasm. This is the hardest one for me to wrap my head around, but there's definitely a lot of noteworthy things to say about the way this level was named. For one, it's the only level I can think of that includes an indefinite article. Team N2 could just have easily have stuck to the conventional adjective-noun format and called it Bizarre Phantasm, and it probably would have worked just fine. But I bet you could tell from me saying it out loud just now that some of the magic is lost there. The secret sauce in this title seems to be this one-letter word. That's inherently kind of fascinating to me, because to be honest, I don't really know why that's the case. Maybe it's because there's something mysterious about the unspecificity it introduces. We're talking about phantasm. Ghosts, after all, something ethereal and unknowable. Bizarre is such a great word choice, too. It implies something unsettling about its strangeness. It's not just strange, it's bizarre. What does this have to do with the level, though? Isn't it just an ice-themed level? Well, I think there's two ways to interpret a bizarre phantasm. One is that of a haunted, frozen wasteland, a plain of nothing but snow and ice and freezing cold wind lashing against your face, populated only by the spirits of careless and hopeless wanderers who met their end there, too ill prepared for the cold. Specifically, I'm thinking about a story Katara tells in The Last Airbender, where a girl gets lost in the frozen wastes and freezes to death while trying to build a fire. Her spirit lingers on, forever trying to warm herself, but no matter what she tries, she always feels cold. You could also interpret it more abstractly though. Perhaps a bizarre phantasm represents a base instinctive feeling. For example, has this ever happened to you? You're by yourself or with a small group of friends at night, on your way home after some kind of party or event. Maybe you're on a trip in an unfamiliar country, trudging through the shadows of some deserted place, a park, a forest, a parking lot. And for some reason, your body suddenly runs cold and you perk up, alert. Are you being watched? It's not uncommon in ghost stories for people to feel their body run ice cold when a spirit passes through them. It's a ghostly chill that runs down your spine. Is that what you felt? Now, I don't believe in ghosts, but I've certainly had this feeling before. It's kind of unsettling, but I think it's kind of exciting too. Makes me feel alive. Maybe that is what a bizarre phantasm is trying to convey. Anyway, I think that's about enough literary analysis of Geometry Dash level names. I had intended to include a section about Ice Carbon Diablo X as well, but this video is already getting way too long, so I'll leave that as an exercise to the comments. In hindsight, it's kind of insane that I had this much to say about a subject that seems this tiny on the surface, but you know what? I'm proud of what I've accomplished today. I feel like I've really hit my stride lately when it comes to making these videos, and I think it shows. I put a lot of time and effort into writing and editing them, and as much as I enjoy it, I do have obligations to fulfill. So I'd like to highlight my Patreon page in case you want to support me directly. It really helps me out. On that note, special shoutouts to my grandpa demons on Patreon, Belfry Clock, Crone44, Bafer, Sir Lethbridge Stewart, Ultra Team, Omega Omelette, Astrid, Nightlight, and NotGamer101. Thank you so much for your support, and thanks for watching everybody. See you later.